Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Can you hear me? First question. Can you hear me? As you can see, I'm not in my usual studio. I will be returning there in just about a week's time, but I thought I'd check in. Happy New Year, but I do hope you can hear me. Right. Loud and clear. Thank you very much, Roberto. I already see that there's like what? 50 people here. Fantastic. How are all of you doing today? How was your new year? I hope you had a fantastic entry into 2022. That you're well, that your family is well, that your friends are well, and that you're enjoying your first couple of days in this glorious new year. Long may it live on in our memories as one that is prosperous and successful and happy and nice, not like 2021. Dijkstra, Sukhoi Sweetheart, that's a good name. Petros, how are you guys doing? Frohes Neues Jahr. Thank you very much, Carpenter. How are you? Right, so just so you know what's going on, obviously, like I said, I'm still in Germany. I'm not where I tend to live most of the time, which is the UK. And the situation here is the camera is over there. My screen is sort of over here, or the big screen is over here. So if I look like I'm not talking to you, you know what's up. It's technology. It's technology. I flew over rural Norfolk, dropping presents from an A400. Thanks. Okay, that's one way of celebrating the holidays, I guess. I'm not an international man of mystery. No, no, no. It's just I've got family and friends here, and I live over there, and it's always complicated. That's all it is. You're in quarantine, the extra. Hope you're well. Is this just because you're traveling? Probably. 737 Max, welcome, welcome. My cockpit ergonomics could use a work. They could, yeah, they could. My control peripherals are here and over there. It's not actually, yeah, it requires a lot of work. The computer is over there, monitor is over here. I've got a drink at least. You can tell by the fact that I have a named mug that I'm here living with my parents for the holidays. You can tell, right? I see Saracen. Thank you very much. You think the Chinese PLA Air Force can overtake the Japanese and the Taiwanese and Japanese Air Force without U.S. intervention? Well, there was an interesting article that was posted not too long ago. I think it was, can't remember exactly where I saw it. I dropped on it via Twitter, and that was an interesting. The argument that was being made essentially is that even though everybody is sort of focused on China's, and with that I mean sort of mainland China's um, fleet and naval air capabilities now with the upcoming carrier programs and so on. Well, I don't say upcoming carrier program; they're in full swing. That everybody sort of focused on the naval aspect of the shall we say it, rivalry between China and Taiwan, that actually people are forgetting the air dynamic and the fact that China has potentially a realistic chance of actually just taking Taiwan by air. Question mark, big question mark, of course. But the article sort of advanced that logic and it was very interesting. So, I mean, sheer number wise, Chinese already have that, but it is one thing having the numbers and the other thing actually establishing sort of um, that area where of air superiority where they can then operate freely, and they will have to establish that no matter what, even if they want to go by a naval forces, which let's hope they never do. Let's just keep it nice and cool over there. No conflict, please. Just keep it as it is. Louis, opinions in Finland choosing the F-35 and how does it affect Germany? Well, that's interesting because yeah, Germany is starting to get surrounded by F-35 users, aren't they? It's just we're just waiting for a country like Poland to do the same thing, and then it's just like okay, so might as well. No, I joke. It's going to be interesting because the new coalition did say in their coalition agreement that they're going to have to take a decision, or that they're going to make a decision very, very quickly on the replacement of Tornado. But the following sentence to that is interesting because they said the following sentence, paraphrasing now, essentially says something, well, the question about nuclear sharing will also have to be sort of considered. That's a very poor paraphrase there, but it actually makes it seem like potentially we're getting a replacement for Tornado without that nuclear sharing capability as well. So they kept their doors open there, which is interesting, I think. Definitely interesting. And I think we are going to see some news on that relatively soon. When I say relatively soon, I mean this quarter. And I will make an update video soon. I already planned it. The thing is, right now, we're just on that cusp where I'm like, I might just have to wait a little bit longer to make an update video because right now the old videos are still more or less up to date. And the only thing that has changed is the coalitions, the potential speculations that come with that. But I'm not a big fan of speculation. I know it runs well on YouTube, but I'm not a big fan of it. So we'll see. I definitely think we're going to see more Eurofighters. That's for sure. But what else are we going to see? That's the question. More Eurofighters. Well, when I say more Eurofighters, I don't mean immediately Kommissar, but more of a five-year plan sort of thing. When were the air forces becoming important of their own? First World War already. I mean, the Battle of Verdun already showed that you need an air service, and then the Finns got their air force, and the RAF got their air force. There we go. Icy Saracen, once again, thank you very much for that donation. Thanks, buddy. What's your take on the air war between Russia's air force and the European air force over Eastern Europe? I mean, really the best video to sum it up was, in a way, the one that where we had Justin Drunk over on the channel with in the video where he sort of explained a little bit the capabilities of both sides, even though we focused mainly on Russia. And I think what most people tend to forget with Russia is not just that they have a massive air force, because we can always argue about the relative quality of the equipment and so on and so forth. But with the Russian Air Force, you also have, of course, the Russian air defense system, and that's a big one. And the range that they have, and the sort of just the sheer frontage of being able to have multiple vectors from which to scan the airspace makes it incredibly difficult for NATO forces, I think. So that is going to be a massive advantage for the Russians that I think most people don't tend to realize, because we still to this day conceptualize air warfare as dogfights. And it really isn't like that anymore. Yes, a gun is important. Fair enough. A gun is important if something goes wrong and you really have to pull G's and maneuver and do all that white scarf stuff. But it's really moving away from that. By the way, talking about sort of the conceptions about how we see air warfare, I do have a book recommendation already early on in the stream. I got this sort of as my own Christmas present, along with a couple of other books. So this one, Flying Camelot, Michael Hankins, came out recently. I would recommend if you're sort of interested in the question of why do certain planes get designed in the way they do, what sort of influences are there on the technical side as well as on the doctrinal side, as well as on the sort of personnel side of things. Definitely. The Finnish choice, like I said earlier, I mean, I'm sure Saab would have been happy to have a body in Europe that also goes with the Gripen, but by now the F-35 at the price you're getting it, it's for many countries that's the deciding factor. The F-35 has become incredibly cheap. You can get one for like 75 mil now, fly away. I mean, on average. Depends on the contract and the terms and so on. Obviously, you have long-term costs as well, but F-35 is actually not too bad in long-term costs as well, it appears. By the way, I was going to go over a couple of sort of video topics with all of you that are coming up this year. I sort of made a preliminary list. And also a little bit of an update. So most of you already know this. I have 2 videos a month coming out, right? So that's always the second and the fourth Thursday of a month, where you will get a military aviation history video. But beyond that, what I'm also planning is to have 2 streams from essentially now on. One sort of what we're doing right now, just having a little bit discussion, talking about planes and stuff, and one research stream where I primarily work and try to figure out some problems, maybe with some files and so on that I'm showing on the screen. But I sort of want to take you all while doing that through some of the sort of my work and share those files with all of you, because that's part of what this channel is about, getting everybody in touch with sort of primary sources and with the process of, learning about these things. So that's what I'm doing. I have, for this year, considering the fact that we have 24 videos slotted, maybe it's a little bit more, maybe a special one here and there. So let's say we're going to have 30 videos this year. I have I have 82 video ideas. So some of those are not going to make it. Some of those are not going to make it. Lots of World War II stuff still. Experience reports. Pacific. I have a couple of videos on that I want to do on the A6M0, simply because I think there's 1 or 2 things that could really be cool to talk about with that plane. Because we're still living in a world where I have to remind people that it's NAFATs, right? Not all fighters are zeros, but we'll see. I'm not promising 30 videos. I can already see people getting excited in the chat. I'm saying we have 24 slots, and with additional videos, potentially we'll get to 30. But that's just... I had a chat with Bernhard recently, and he said this really cool sentences, like the best consistency is the one that you can keep. That's what we're working here. No, I didn't say 82. I didn't say 82. I said I have 82 video ideas right now, and that does not include the ones that are in the folder back home. So we'll probably be sitting on 130s. But with these videos ideas, sometimes it's just like one of the things of, I'll go with the ones that I think are the best as well as the most interesting. But that can change depending on the files I find and so on and so forth. Rammstein or Iron Maiden? Probably Rammstein. To be honest, why not both? I haven't really read that much. I read. I haven't really listened too much to Iron Maiden, so I really can't say. I've listened to more Rammstein in my time. Not all bombers are Bettys. Yes, Roberto, very true as well. Nabab. So yeah, we'll see. There's also a video. Where's the list again? Of course, now I closed the list because why would I not do that? Also a video. Let's see if that interests some people. Here we go. Yeah. So I have something that I might do on the ME-163 on the testing and trials of that aircraft, because I think that actually gives me an avenue of discussing this aircraft without going with this Luftwaffe approach, right? Where it's like, oh, what could have happened if they had more of them? Well, they would have lost even faster. But there's also quite a few stuff from the East Germany in the last archive hole that I got. So all sort of the really interesting pilot manuals from East Germany, which are directly translated out of Russian, and some of them are still half Russian. But those are really cool. And I'm probably going to do something on that as well, because you can actually, in the manuals, they also describe tactics and the way they want to use those aircraft and so on and so forth. It's like their manuals are flight manual, training manual, as well as, like tactics and operational usage manual combined in one, which is strange. I mean, NATO has a similar approach, although with different chapters. Maybe it's because they didn't have enough paper. maybe that's it. Who knows? Cannon fodder, how are you doing? Did the B-17 ever do a low-level raid? Buddy, Dave. One of the videos ideas I have here is close air support with heavy bombers during Normandy. Oh, that file is good. You wouldn't believe how good that file is. Any plans for video on the Bearcat? Not on my list. Not on my list. That's a nice suggestion. I think there's a Bearcat in the US. I want to come to the US this year. I want to go to the US this year. I cannot go everywhere, but I want to go to the US. Definitely. I want to go there at some point. And maybe there's one to film. Maybe there is. B-17 dive bomber confirmed. That is not something I said, but if you want to use it, go ahead. It's your prerogative. Yes, I know him. Yeah, definitely. To be honest, I don't actually watch that much YouTube, if you're considering. Like, I watch some YouTubers, but it's I don't. But yeah, no, I know him. Any source material in Hannah Reich's test flight? No, I haven't. Wait, there was more to that question. Collaboration or interview with him. I don't really do that many collaborations, and that's just a personal choice thing, because I have so much to do, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see. Any videos about the air war over Malta? Maybe after the Stuka book is out. Touch wood, that it actually ships on time. If there are people here in the chat that have, and I'm gonna have to block that bot. Bye-bye. If there are people in the chat right now that have bought our Stuka book, first of all, thank you very much. Update here. There's going to be an update on Indiegogo as well. The English translation is in the sort of draft finished. It has been sent to reviewers. A couple of chapters have already been checked off and are good to go. We're going to put it together, finish up the visuals, and then the book is complete. We were meant to send it out in February or March. The thing is, with the fulfillment center right now, and with shipping, with Omicron, things got really, really nasty again. Last year, we managed to do it during COVID as well. It's just 2 months late, but we managed to do it. We will get to do it as well. But just keep that in mind. Just fresh off the press here as the update, and it's also going to go out on Indiegogo. It's annoying. We're so close to finishing now, and I'm just like sitting there as like I really want to send it to people, and all the time schedules for fulfillment and shipping, not just us, has been apparently thrown into disarray from what I hear. A couple of people have bought the book. Absolutely awesome. If you want to get the book, by the way, you still have time. Just go to stukabook.com. Right. And you can still order it for a couple of weeks. We will be stopping that soon. I mean, right now it's in demand, right? It will later on be available also, sort of on demand via Amazon and so on and so forth. But there we go. Okay, that should work now. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. The first book we put on Amazon took 7 months to be cleared by Amazon. The second book didn't take that long. The Dornier 26. Yes, I remember. That was in the Condor video, right? I don't have my notes with me right now. What I remember is that there were a couple of issues. First of all, they didn't have enough. They didn't have enough spare parts. They didn't. The plane didn't have the defensive capabilities. It also wasn't really useful in the bombing role. It was okay, sort of in the reconnaissance role, but not in the bombing role. And yes, I mean it has long range, but yeah, it just wasn't considered that useful. The Germans had even less of those, I think, than the Focke-Wulf 200s. Gaming streams, maybe. Uh, Once I have more time, yeah. Probably just something like DCS or something. I enjoyed those. The problem is, so that link didn't work apparently. Question mark. Did that link work for you all? The one I put into the chat earlier? Yeah, now it works. It worked 2 out of 3 times for me. Interesting. Did I do a video on the Horton 229? Yes. You can find it on the channel. I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. VR sims. I don't have VR, so I can't really say. Let me go through some of those video ideas. In the Defense Off series is also going to probably have a return in Q1 again. So we had In Defense of the Bolton Pole Defiant, the Brewster Buffalo, the TBD Devastator, then the Brewster Buffalo. And the next one is either going to be one that is voted directly by the patrons. They already made their vote essentially. But I'm going to put it up to a new vote because patrons and channel members have also suggested new additions, which I think are pretty good. So if you are a patron and channel member, make sure to watch sort of the community tab or the Patreon tab the next couple of weeks because we will have that vote coming out soon and you get to decide which plane I'm going to be doing. Well, you get to have a say. It's 50-50 here between you and me. Who gets to have to say? Also a couple of files on sort of allied evaluations of German planes, which are interesting. The A-10 is going to make a return as well, probably in Q1 again, which is really cool. The last video got a few people excited, shall we say. Very passionate comments sometimes, but it's all good. It's all good. Something on the F-15EX. I think that would be cool. Something about automatization in aerial warfare. I'm trying to get an expert interview sorted for that, which I cannot confirm just yet. YouTuber Growling Sidewinder. First of all, once again, thank you for the donation in a DCS dogfight. Yeah, he would win. I can already tell you how that's going to go. The only thing I can fly right now in DCS, I mean, I can fly the planes. I just don't know how to operate them. Those are two different things. But the only one I can sort of operate is, well, the Second World War planes. Yeah, I can probably do that. And I know sort of the basics of the A-10. So, yeah, I'm going into the dirt. How do you think aviation would have changed if Central Powers had won the First World War? Not much, to be honest. Not much. There would have probably been... No, to be honest, I don't think it would have changed much for aviation. I was going to say that perhaps there would have been less emphasis on rotary engines in a couple of countries if like the Central Powers would have won World War One, and there would have been more of an emphasis immediately into sort of high performance inline engines. Maybe I can see that being a result out of that, because rotary engines for some reason were very much in the norm in some countries like the UK, for example, even after World War One. Did I ever consider joining the Air Force? No. No, I mean, in Germany, we used to have compulsory military service that went out of force before I got, to that age, 18. And yeah, no, I never thought about joining. Just had different priorities back then. Malta Aviation Museum again. Yeah, sure. If I visit Malta again, absolutely. It would be interesting to see how it has changed. That would be interesting to see how it would have changed since I was there last time, because I remember them working on a Meteor ? I think so. I think they were working on a Meteor. And there was also this side hole where they had a fuselage of a C-47 ? I can't remember. Maybe somebody is here from Malta and knows. That's an interesting comment. I don't quite understand that. No, I'm pretty sure there would have been something similar to the Second World War again. Let me pull out a file here. Let me pull out a file. Yes. Okay, here we go. No, that's not it. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to look at some Cold War stuff now. From the German archives. Okay, I'm looking through the manual now for the MiG-23 MF, the East German one. So if you know my Twitter and maybe my Instagram, you already know that I posted a picture of this one. And somebody else actually responded with the Russian picture, or with the Russian manual, and it was completely different from sort of the layout options, because obviously the Soviets, I should have said the Soviet manuals, the Soviets didn't give the same weapon systems to East Germany, because East Germany, while being on the front line, was also East Germany, and there was obviously some history between Germany and the Soviet Union. And I'm just looking at the missiles. I'm trying to pull out some quick stats here. So we have the R-23, right? Everybody go on Wikipedia, just so you can get an idea. R-23 missile. There we go. So now you know what it looks like. So here's the thing. It has a range, right? Depending if you're sort of behind somebody or in front of somebody or merging with somebody, from 3 to 25 kilometers. Now the question that I would have right now, what makes that big difference, right? Obviously, I understand speeds and so on and so forth, but if you are able to fire a missile, theoretically speaking, at 25 kilometers an hour at a target that is merging with you, then actually you're not firing at 25 kilometers, right? You're firing at the distance that it takes for the missile to converge with the target during that course. So this is not the actual range of the missile. That is probably the lock-on range of the missile. Then if we look at sort of the range, if you're shooting at a target that is flying away from you, maximum 8 kilometers, I mean, yes, I understand, of course, but how does that compute? Like, is that like, if there's anybody from the Eastern Bloc here right now and knows their way around these manuals, can you explain that to me? Because it just seems weird, right? That just seems weird. And then, yeah, of course, I understand, the whole thing about the maneuvers you can pull in order to artificially increase the distance the missile has to fly in and so on and so forth. But yeah, kinetic range. But shouldn't the kinetic range under all circumstances then be up to 25 kilometers, right? So what they're giving is the realistic ranges. But really what they should be saying, look, the missile has a range, a maximum range of 25 kilometers. However, if your rear aspect, things are going to be different to when you're sort of converging with a target, right? So what they're really not saying is, they're not saying, because it's literally written maximum range, right? What they're actually saying is, this is the maximum range at which you should, until which you should fire your missile. And beyond that, you should no longer fire a missile. Yeah, closing speed, absolutely. That's already being computed in my brain. But what I just don't understand the logic, the way they're phrasing this. So that's just something that that I find bizarre. Hence the question of if anybody's over there, in the former Eastern Bloc. If you could explain that logic to me, because I know from experience that every country has sort of a different logic in the way that they're also presenting data. You see this already in well, specifically in World War II. If you look at British files, look at German files, American files, they have a very different way of saying the same thing. Yeah, but that's minimal from what I'm looking at here in this specific case, right? They're also saying like the minimum distance you should fire at a target that's converging, or that's more or less converging with you, the minimum distance is 4 to 8 kilometers, which is essentially the maximum distance from an attack from the back. So again, there's a logic there to the way that they're phrasing the information, but I'm just not able to crack it. And then, yeah, maximum angle. What do we have here? Maximal angle for the correction of bore. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. That's 60, that's 50 degrees, plus minus, obviously. I mean, that's just for the seeker head. 35 seconds of thrust. That's another one that I would ask now. I'm going to have to read through this again, but 35 seconds of essentially Gelenkenfluges, which means flight where the missile is actually guiding itself or flying itself. Yeah, making course corrections. There we go. 40 seconds, it detonates. Okay. From what point? From the point of no longer being guided, or from the point of being fired? Doesn't say. I'm going to assume from the point of being fired. Oh, cool, Guto. That's good to know. It's cool to hear that it helped you. Also, what I find really cool in these Eastern Bloc manuals is you look into them and you're starting to see sort of as targets. You're starting to see F-104s, just starfighters. You're starting to sometimes see phantoms as well, which is just like, they did that as well then, did they? Yeah. Sometimes in NATO manuals you find something that looks suspiciously like a MiG. And now we have the R-15 here. Yeah, see the R-15. Okay, short range missile, of course. Yeah, essentially the equivalent of a Sidewinder. It doesn't have the same way of transferring the information via the manual. It just says range is 2.5 to 13 kilometers, which would then be translated into, okay, so does that mean 2.5 minimum at rear aspect over to 13 kilometers maximum at frontal aspect? Because it doesn't say. It just doesn't say. R13M, 13M. It's strange. It just appears strange to me. Okay, enough of Cold War stuff. I'm gonna look at another file. I have a question to all of you. If you're in a German aircraft during World War II and you're seeing a formation of B-17s, from what direction do you attack? Is it frontal? Is it rear? Is it side? Is it up? Is it down? Any free directional direction. Give it to me. I would be interested to know what the popular answer to that is. And while I do that, I will pull out the file. Yeah, frontal, frontal, frontal. Everybody says frontal. Everybody says frontal. Let me guess, there's some documentary that told you all about this? Yeah, German aces pressed your attack until they're super close to the target. Yeah. Let me pull out the file. I already have a video on this where you do see people saying that frontal attacks are sort of the best, but there's actually a lot of disadvantages to them as well. Not just the fact that you have to wait until you're really dead close, but once you attack a formation of B-17s, right? Let's assume I have multiple hands here. This is sort of the front tip, and then you have your combat boxes staggered around this, and this formation takes kilometers, right? If you're attacking this frontally, even a side box, where are you going to end up? Where are you going to end up? You're going to end up right in the middle of the formation. And once you're in the middle of this combat box formation, even these formations are huge, and you're not always in range of a B-17 gunner. Not that they sometimes know that. I mean, they will still fire at you. But the only way in order to get out of that formation is either pressing on, hitting the next formation, hitting the next formation, hitting the next formation, which is not going to be all that easy, or diving away and then trying to reset. But the amount of time that takes is ludicrous, which is really sort of something I don't think, like, you have to conceptualize the way that these fighter formations are being brought towards the B-17s, right? They're being led there via the ground controller who's telling them, 4 engine bombers coming in, this, fly that and that in that direction. And they're trying to set them up in an intercept course, of course. But you can only sort of get 1 or 2 passes maximum if you're doing a frontal approach, which generally speaking seems to be the only thing they could do. But from what I found now, so that's based sort of on what I had previously found. But then I found a file recently. Let me check that out. Search for this file, please. It actually says something slightly different. And what it says is, what you really should be doing is you sort of come from an approach from the front but the side, and then you hit the B-17 or your favorite bomber of choice. You fly onwards, and then you turn in the direction of travel of the bomber formation, so you can reset the whole thing. And it's like a carousel or merry-go-round, and that's what you're supposed to do. So you're not supposed to come like this. You're supposed to come like this. And then you can either, via extending the dive, then climb up again, or you climb up and then you dive again. You just rinse and repeat speed and altitude, right? While maintaining that that position. So that is probably going to be something that I'm going to do in an upcoming video as well, because I have some really cool visuals here that are actually in the original files that show exactly that. It's sort of a carousel, really. I keep saying carousel. It's a merry-go-round, right? Same thing could be done theoretically from below, right? So you come like this, and then you go like this. And then again, I say all this, but once you're up there, you do what you do. That's the other thing with all these tactics. It's, yes, there's a certain preferential way of doing things, but once you're up there and you're just going to attack what you see. You're not going to bother too much after your first approach. So it might sound like a cool idea, sort of, to have this rinse and repeat. But in actual fact, that doesn't really work. Question mark. What is this? This file, the file that I'm pulling this from is from 1943. 1943. And oh, there's another file here from 1942 that I haven't read through yet. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read through this. This is one of those things that maybe in the future I can actually show on screen, and we can go through that together. But right now, I would have to concentrate on the text. I wouldn't be able to talk with all of you about this. There probably isn't a right way. The B-17 has guns everywhere. Well, yeah, I mean, the right way, in a sense, in the perspective of the attacker, is, get a fast, sudden attack, hit the bomber, and then fly away as fast as you can, trying to get out of sort of the kill zone. That's all you can do. Oh, the song suggestions. Yes, posted on Twitter and Instagram as well, or instant gratification. By the way, if you have those social media platforms, I think they're in the description below of this chat, or if you want to follow there. I'm semi-active, shall we say, and I posted a picture of an a Me-24 recently, asking for song suggestions, because I realized we all know about Fortunate Son as sort of the song of the Hueys and the Vietnam War, but is there a Russian equivalent of that? And a lot of people gave some sound suggestions, so that was nice. To answer your question, I have potentially access to a Mi-24, also from the GDR, so East Germany, but it's going to take some time getting there. Maybe this year. Yeah. Kurfürst, how do you do? How's the weather up there in northern Germany? In the south, we had snow yesterday. It's all gone by now, I think. I don't see anything anymore. The museum that's my favorite I have ever visited. Oh man, that would be unfair. That would be unfair. I will say there's a couple of museums that are just fantastic, that I worked with, and they just went above. They just went above and beyond the Call of Duty. But I've mentioned all of that sort of in the videos themselves as well. Plane Talk as a title. Yeah, I mean, I got some really cool suggestions, actually. So I had Plane Talk, I had Planesplaining, Splaining Planes, Plain Speak, or Speaking Plainly. So there's a couple of good suggestions so far. I just have to pick one. It probably depends the mood I'm in. If I'm being professional at that moment, or if I'm being silly, then it might be something like Planesplaining. Did the Luftwaffe benefit from the pre-war German annexations? No, it didn't. It actually suffered from that. I mean, it got more staff officers, and there's a couple of generals as well that in the Luftwaffe that were, for example, like Austrian, but nothing from from what I know, from the other annexations that they had, or that they forced rather. So no. Usually what they got is just outdated equipment in the case of Austria, and a couple of airfields. Warm and cozy, but cold, yeah. Chat ack. An unplanned live stream. Well, they're starting to get more planned now, which is good. We're starting to get more planned now. Has Germany decided on its new fighter aircraft contract yet? No, it has not. It has not. Referred to that earlier, actually. It has not. I always wonder why YouTube just doesn't manage to get this bot problem fixed. Really annoying. Really annoying. A Bundeswehr Gripen? But why? We have Eurofighter. Like a Bundeswehr Gripen is a downgrade in many ways. We have Eurofighter for that. I mean, what Gripen has? Less hard points, less range? Question mark. Cheaper? Fair enough. Cheaper. Yeah, less range. Nah. Oh, just the looks. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. It is. Yeah, it does have a look. What are you doing inside the cockpit on FCAS? Well, once there is an FCAS, probably not, because all that stuff is quite. If I get to convince all the countries involved in designing FCAS to allow me to step on FCAS and do an inside the cockpit, then I will. But what you're going to see is essentially just me and a covering blanket that covers everything down from my neck, or even down from my chin, even, because they're really not going to show everything. And I'm just going to be sitting there like at a hairdresser, and you won't be able to see anything I'm pointing at. Even I won't even be able to see anything that I'm pointing at. Is there going to be an FCAS? Good question. Good question. I think there will. Whether it's going to be in this constellation or another one, I don't know. One of the interesting things with FCAS is still going to be the power plant. And the same thing applies to Tempest. Because the Brits know how to design an engine, but they don't necessarily have the testing facility for it. Whereas the French and the Germans don't know how to design an engine, but they have a testing facility. I'm not the only one that says that both planes should really have the same engine. That actually could help. But, we're not the ones in charge. Look at the mock-up yeah, of course, but the mock-up concept doesn't have anything. They're just like, okay, here's going to be a screen, here's going to be a screen there, but that's it. And the concepts don't really say anything. The concepts look good on camera. They look good at one of those fairs, those events, but they don't really say anything. The whole thing is going to change. Both planes should be the same aircraft. Not exactly controversial, but the way things are going. Rolls-Royce can use their testing facility in America or something. Oh, if it was that simple. If it was that simple. I don't know. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. I had a couple of chats with people that, and from what I gather, that's at the moment that's not the plan. From what I gather. Luftwaffe should buy some A-10 Thunderbolts. They're not even being produced anymore. There's nothing that plane offers to Germany. There's enough. I mean, I know there's a lot of A-10 lovers out there, and for good reason. But the A-10 offers nothing to any sort of NATO power that is not the US, unless it has to do coin. Again, US. Buy some flank. Should France buy some flankers to reverse engineer the engines China style? Do you see the French doing that? Even for FCAS? No, I don't think so. Plus, that will take years. I mean, it's not a realistic time frame. Well, theoretically, I mean, we can make the argument that on a modern battlefield, the A10 was always not going to survive. Before anybody says titanium tub or redundancies or I don't know high placed engines to remove IR, IR detectability, the thing was going to get shredded within a week if the Cold War went hot in Germany. It could maybe get back in order to save the pilot. That's it. The plane would just be sitting on a runway completely broken up if it even if it made it back. Except for coin operations, that plane has no real sense. And even then, the stuff that it does with coin, I mean, the only thing that is helpful there is the gun. Nobody's saying that the A10 isn't awesome. We're just saying that it's obsolete. Plot armor is best armor. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Actually, I should make a comparison video between the Frogfoot and the A10. That's going to get some people excited. Because I don't think people will necessarily... Nah, I mean, it would be unfair. The A10 does... What the A10 does is good, even if it's delivery of Mavericks or GBUs or whatever. Everything it does is good. It's just no longer required. You have other planes that do that. Yes, maybe the A10A versus the Su-25 would be a more fair comparison. That's a good call. Once the A10 got its upgrades, plus with at that point you starting to see a big difference. I would have to look a little bit more closer at the Su-25s as well to see which platform. I mean, really fair. We should be fair and just compare the contemporaries rather than pick and choose. So let's say the worst A10 versus the best Su-25, or the worst Su-25 versus the best A10. That just doesn't make any sense, right? Would probably be the first iteration A10A versus first iteration of Su-25, and then see what they can do. Plus, the same thing applying to the Su-25 and the A10 at its trailing edge, shall we say. Actually, I'm going to write that down. So now we are not on 82 video ideas. We are on 18.3. We are on a... Where's my mouse? I don't find my mouse on the screen. It's staying... There we go. Okay. Just going to say, it's standing perfectly still. Blend in with its environment, just like you have to do against a T-Rex. There are upgraded Su-25 SMs, and yeah. To be honest, I like the Su-25. I think it's a really cool aircraft. But I do feel that it fits very much sort of in the Soviet style or in the Russian style now of handling things. And Frank, rather an A6 intruder versus an A10. Actually, I was just gonna say the Su-25 feels to me like almost like it's a mix between the A6 intruder and the A10. Almost. I can see problems with that logic, but almost. Because if you think about how they operated the A6 intruder with the capabilities the intruder had, including tram and the Latern pods, Wait, did it have lantern? I have to check. But tram, certainly tram. It's almost the same, isn't it? F-15E made the A-10 useless. Funny you saying that. Actually, I'm also one of the video topics that I have written down as well is a comparison between the A-10 and the F-16, which was initially meant to be, a pure-on fighter. That didn't happen, of course. Yes, it had radar. So that was also going to be an interesting comparison, because if you look at sort of the amount of missions flown, for example, during Desert Storm, and you compare the F-16 and the A-10, I mean, the A-10 data pool of Desert Storm is both good in the way that we have a lot of data, and also bad because we know that data is, shall I say, corrupted slightly in the way that it was collected. There were mistakes made during the collection process, with biases either pro or against the A-10 influencing the data that we have, and it's very hard to sift through it. But if you compare those are the two best data pools we actually have, the F-16 and the A-10. And they do very similar missions, a lot of sort of aerial interdictions, or AI and BA areas, so battlefield area interdiction. Depending on where you stand, you might conceptualize those differently or as the same. But they offer a really cool sort of comparison between two platforms that are vastly different. And somehow these F-16 is sitting there and it's like, actually, it's not doing all that bad. Actually, it's staying with the A-10. Not the same exact, the delivery, the weapon delivery, completely different, but in many ways comparable. Well, it helps if you knew how to spell bratwurst. Maybe then you would find a good place. About pre-20th century military aviation, not really. Just not my cup of tea. I mean, what you have is essentially balloons. Napoleon had a balloon. American Civil War. There were balloons used during the Siege of Paris, during the Prusso-French War. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's more, but Canada should get a Gripen definitely. Well, the Gripen doesn't fulfill the minimal requirements for Canada. They kept it in the running for now, but it doesn't fulfill the minimal requirements. For Canada, there's only one choice right now, and that's the F-35. The problem is the Canadians, or the ex-Canadian government, I think, specifically said they're not going to get the F-35. So right now they're sitting there like, we need the F-35. Favorite alternate World War II scenario. My favorite alternate World War II scenario. I'm not really a person for what if, but there's a video that's about, close to the 2-hour mark that I did together with Dracheniffel and Bernhard back when we were in Tankfest 2019. And we sort of talked about what would have happened if the Germans, after France, would have immediately switched all their attention to the Mediterranean. And what would have happened then? And we went through so much data, and it very quickly shows you how difficult what-if scenarios actually are, because it's not just about, oh, well, this one thing happens, hence this side will win. That's sort of the typical sort of what if scenario, right? One thing changes, one thing in the equation changes, one variable, and that immediately changes the whole outcome. In mathematics, yes, that's what happens if you change one variable. In reality, that's not what changes. There's always going to be a counter reaction to every variable that you change. And we sort of went through those things, and that was an interesting project to work on, even though I'm not really a what if person. So I'm going to say that that's definitely my sort of favorite alternate history scenario. And there was a question I saw earlier that was interesting. R-23 missiles on the MiG-23. I think so. I don't have every single manual with me. Oh, that's definitely the wrong one. No, just R-23. R and T. Plus the R3, so Sidewinder, and the R13. Which I think actually the R13, that's a little bit of a special one, isn't it? Yeah, this file doesn't say it either. That's kind of annoying. Well, the thing is, like, for the R13, the R3, obviously, Sidewinder, R13, Sidewinder. I'm wondering if that's just the way that they're designating this stuff now in the East German manual is slightly different to the one in the Soviet one. That's what I'm wondering, because you're saying R3S and R13M. I would have to look at the equivalents. Although generally speaking, they're just one-to-one Soviet designations. Generally speaking. The ceiling light is counterproductive. Buddy, I'm not in my usual office. It is what it is. Just imagine it as a sort of a halo, if you will. Yes, there was a Sidewinder that was stuck inside a Chinese MiG. There was also a Sidewinder that was removed by an East German spy from a German army base, who literally walked out having wrapped it in a carpet, put it into his car, realized that his car wasn't big enough to transport the thing, so he had the missile sticking out, still wrapped in the carpet, in the back of his car. He put a little bit a warning sign there, so he wouldn't get stopped by the police because he's following the regulations. And he drove away, and he got that missile to East Germany, and then the East Germans sent it over to the Soviets. Just imagine that. Imagine that. It just goes onto an army base, and wraps the Sidewinder in a carpet, takes it out the gate, and nobody does anything. Because he has the warning signal on the carpet. It is understandable. He's following the regulations, so let him go. Yes, going through. It's unbelievable, this story. At first I thought this story was fake. Sometimes you get these stories and they're just like, that didn't happen. And then I asked a couple of people who who looked at this a little bit more closer, who actually researched this, and they said, yeah, that's true. What was the fighter plane that collided in mid-air and landed with one wing? There were multiple, going all the way back to even World War One, I would say. I used to do the same with sausages. Yeah, I mean, in Germany, if you follow the rules, nobody's going to stop you. If you have a sign winder wrapped in your carpet while you're doing so, there was no reason to stop you. You follow the rules. I'm just trying to catch up with chat here. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, that's that Swedish guy. I heard about that as well. Yeah. I don't know about that Earth space. Maybe. Any videos about the Luftwaffe in the Mediterranean? Probably once the Stuka book is done. I'll have some files from the Stuka book that I sort of want to show as well, and probably at that point I will do that. Yeah, the NATO aircraft, that didn't make any sense. The NATO aircraft did not make any sense at all. At all. Oh, by the way, before I forget, next video is coming out next week. So put it into your agendas on the 13th of January at 7 p.m. Zulu, shall we say. So yeah, 1900 hours Zulu. Next video. And it's going to be an insight of the cockpit. So look forward to that one. It's a good one. It's a really good one. So I'm hoping all of you will enjoy that one. Inside the Cockpit is one of those series that I really enjoy doing, but has sort of mixed results sometimes depending on the aircraft. But do check it out. It's going to be absolutely amazing. The access we got from the place is fantastic, and you're going to enjoy it. You enjoyed the swordfish in the cockpit? Yes, the swordfish was really cool filming that one. As were the ones that are coming out. I still have two more. If you're Patreon or a channel member, you already have early access. Yes, it's already on Patreon, Petros. It's one of the ones I filmed at Navy Wings. Ashley, how do you do? Sorry if you came in early. I only saw you now. How are you? It's going to be sort of on the cusp World War II to Cold War. It's going to be a plane that was designed during World War II, but essentially saw service only during the Cold War. What would I prefer, Kafir or Mirage 5? Probably, both would be so difficult to get access. I'm going to say maybe Kafir, simply because I think that's going to be more difficult to get access to. So if I could, absolutely. Oh, somebody found out which airplane it is. I'm wondering if you know that because you know what's available at Navy Wings, or if you're Patreon channel members. If so, thank you very much. Inside the Cockpit is fully realized by Patreons and channel members, so that is really cool. Something that the community does for everyone. And by the way, how many people do we have in the chat right now? 200 people, 209 people, and 200 likes. Thank you very much. Sadly, YouTube, in their infinite wisdom, obviously got rid of the dislike button, but the like button is still there. Hint, hint. Press it. I don't know if that does anything. Probably. Oh yeah, people just pressed it. It's strange this decision with this dislike button. I really don't understand that, but let's not dwell on that. let's not dwell on that. Oh yeah, wow. The like button just shot up. Cool. Fantastic. So yeah, with Inside the Cockpit, I have a couple of more museums that theoretically I should be able to film at this year. They've already said yes multiple times over the years, but COVID. So hopefully we'll do that. Oh, is it pronounced Kfir? Okay. That's my German brain there. Probably because I would pronounce it differently simply because of the way it's written. So we're Germans. We obviously a phonetic language, and we just say every letter in a way that if you're learning actually German and you don't know how to pronounce a letter, just spell it very difficult in a German way. So, for example, house, which would be a house, Haus, you say Haus, and you already hear sort of the way you have to say the word Haus, house. Yeah. F4 with F-35 fifth gen electronic warfare and countermeasures. Yeah, that's not possible. That's not possible. Helldiver, maybe in defense of the Helldiver, maybe that would be possible. Absolutely. Can I get access to another F4? I already have filmed one, although that is the British one, which is slightly different engines, and so on and so forth. Can I get another? Maybe a Luftwaffe F4 would be cool. I think they have one in Gatto, but it's standing outside. It's not restored. They might have one in Dresden. Question mark. And once again, the same bot comes in and posts something, and I just don't understand why YouTube cannot do anything against that. Bearcat or Sea Fury? I would go with Bearcat. It's just a better looker in my opinion. Although the Sea Fury, sitting inside it, the Sea Fury has an awkward cockpit layout in my opinion. It's not necessarily an ideal cockpit layout, but it has a very sleek look to it, which I really like. I mean, you'll see it in the video. But the cockpit in itself is one of those typical British things, I think, from that time where it's just not that well laid out. And that's already like sort of a modernized cockpit because they're actually still flying that aircraft. The Navy Wings is. I don't know how it is in War Thunder. In Colombia, is there? Okay, cool. Wait, in Colombia. Sorry, I thought about Colombia, United States. You're talking Colombia, the country Colombia. Are you? Colombia? Am I confusing this with an? My brain is completely fried today. Somebody said Sweden. Yeah, the Flugwapen Museum in Linköping. Isn't it still being renovated? Because I had contact with them at some point, and they said, "Hey, you have to wait until it's the renovation's over." And I think back then they said a couple of years. That's pre-COVID, so maybe they already estate. Yes, estate. They said you should, ask again a couple of years. So maybe they're done now. Do I play War Thunder occasionally when I have the time? Usually just like with Bo or maybe one or two of my friends when we can. Winkle Brown, yes. Thoughts on the Tiger Shark? Oh man, I would have loved to see the F-20. I like the idea behind the F-20. I also like the idea between the F-5. It never really caught on with even though the Americans built it, it never really caught on with them itself, except for the aggressor role, of course, and they saw some service in Vietnam. But I really like it. Then again, probably didn't really have a role in the United States Army Air Force. Not the Army Air Force, in the Air Force. More of an export plane. Oh, thank you very much, Ashley. Yeah. I had contact with them again to do some filming, so I will keep you up to date. It's probably going to be end of Q1. Do I play DCS again if I have the time? If I have the time. Yeah, it happens sometimes, Petros, that I'm putting like a German town name into Google where I'm like, okay, so how far away is that from my place? And then I suddenly end up in the US. I'm just like, no, not Herzenstein, Colombia, or Herzenstein, I don't know, Idaho. I want the one that's right next door to me, please. Google is funny sometimes. Arrow Shackleton, oh man, that frontal area. Design. Beautiful. Modern art. Modern art. Any chance of doing it inside the cockpit on the Victor? Yes. Yes, there is a good chance of that. The evil genius black turtleneck sweater. Yeah, I'm back in my turtleneck today. I am. Maximilian Duo. I know that name. Twitter? LinkedIn? I know that name. I was wondering if you could make a video on World War II flight and tactics trainings for the various air forces in the war. Yes, but I think I'm going to do them one after the other because it's a big topic. And to be honest, it's hard getting some really good information on some countries on sort of training and fighter tactics. And not the ones you would expect to be hard on. Germany, relatively easy. America, relatively easy. Britain, I've been in the National Archives. I haven't found a file yet. But the way the British filing system is and the way that sort of the keywords they've used, I haven't fully cracked that yet. Sometimes I go in there and I find a file and just like, where did this come from? Oh, that's beautiful. And sometimes I'm just like, this should be something completely different. Dextra, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening yourself. I might make this turtleneck my trademark. What do you guys think about me always turning up in a turtleneck? How is that for a trademark on that channel? A black turtleneck and black jeans as well. Just let's go full on black. Let's not do the Steve Jobs. I'm not gonna have blue jeans. Let's just go black. I like turtlenecks. They're nice, nice and warm. They're always stylish. Well, as far as you can, make me look stylish. Air Museum in Prague, I haven't visited yet, and I want to go to the Eastern Europe to a couple of museums there. Absolutely. Again, all of these things, I want to do it. COVID. Plus the fact that I have to go over there. I have to take my camera person with me if I do filming because I know that person knows what that person is doing, and I can trust them with the work. And it's just a big logistical thing. And thank you very much for all those people that fund Inside the Cockpit via Patreon and channel memberships, because that's the best way essentially to get the budget and do that, because you have to do flights, you have to do museums, you have to do local transportation, food, and so on and so forth. And Inside the Cockpit is just fully funded by that. Green Goblin, good stream, which I have a duty to encourage momentarily. Just don't spend it all on GM1 or MW50. I won't. Thank you very much, buddy. Thank you very much, Green Goblin. Just don't spend it on MW50. I read actually, that's something I can show you. No, I can't show you guys right now. But I read a file today on the German Mosquito, the TAR-154, where they were arguing about the fact whether that plane should have a radio operator / potentially rear gunner or not. And the General der Jagdflieger, essentially the person in charge of the fighters and fighter pilots, was saying, we don't want this person in there. We want this purely as a long-range escort and sort of Zerstörer, heavy fighter, as well as having maximum performance and agility. Whereas everybody on the technical side, as well as the higher placed, no, actually the Technische Amt, as well as the Erprobungskommando. So these are the people that essentially are testing the aircraft, plus also helping conceptualize it. We're saying, no, we need a second person in the cockpit to operate the radio, because we need that for navigation. Radio navigation, DF finding and so on. We need that for radio communication, because especially if it's escorting, there will be multiple frequencies used, which currently on the technical aspect cannot be done via the pilot. And then we also have to have navigation. And in bad weather capability, we need him to operate the equipment, again, DF, as well as the ILS system that the aircraft is supposed to have. And then they're arguing between each other which one is more important. And in the end, like the General der Jagdflieger speaks the magic word and says, no, we are only going to do this fighter as a single crew member, and there's not going to be a radio operator in there. We already have the radio equipment and the technical equipment that allows the pilot alone to handle these things. We do not require protection from the back because it increased performance and so on. And the pilot is not supposed to lose situational awareness anyway. And that's how it's going to be done. Okay. And that was in 1942. That was a really interesting file to read through. Shall I make a video about that? Shall I put it on the video list idea? Let me see. Did I already do that? I don't think I have. 154. Fuga Magister. Oh, the underpowered piece. I'm not gonna go. I know a pilot who flew that thing, and he had some choice words for the Fuga Magister. Let me make sure that I write this down properly. Is YouTube my job? Sort of, yes. Sort of. Oh, Dr. Clark, how do you do? How do you do indeed? Congratulations on the new book. Where do we have it? There we go. So I'm gonna just pop that into the video idea tab. There we go. No, that was wrong. There we go. So yes, YouTube is sort of my job. I'm also currently at university trying desperately, working my way through my doctorate. Everybody who has been through that probably knows what I'm referring to. So we'll see where that goes. Doing a lot of that. Do I think YouTube is like any other job? In a way, yes, because in a way, yes, of course. I mean, once you earn your living with something, it becomes your job. And of course, YouTube is different to many other jobs. I don't have to do certain things that other people have been doing that have to do. And overall, I would say it would be wrong to think of YouTube. And there I think at least 5 years ago, that was still the prevailing view that YouTube is not a job. But the market has professionalized so much, even though you don't always necessarily see it in the video quality, let's say, that yes, definitely it can be rated as a job. Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Clark. A deep dive into that catastrophe that was the Heinkel 177 drive. I had another couple of files that I pulled from the archives on that as well. I'm not going to go through into them right now, but yeah, there's definitely some interesting aspects there. To be honest, with the Greif, the thing that most people are saying, it's dive bombing capability, that was the bad thing. Actually, it wasn't. And apparently they've tested it properly, and it sustained it wasn't supposed. Actually, the requirements for the Greif, for the Heinkel 177, were never dive bombing, right? It was glide bombing. The requirements were glide bombing, so maximum 40-degree angle, and it did that, no problem. It did that absolutely no problem. There were some failures that were based on construction rather than design, which resulted in some hesitation by test pilots, especially at Heinkel themselves, of really pushing the aircraft through its paces and to the brink of its limits during testing, which caused a lot of anger amongst the General der Kampfflieger, so the bomber pilot, the head honcho of the bomber pilots, as well as the Technische Amt, because they were saying you have to put this through its paces, you have to go above the maximum rated, simply because we need to know how it works. And Heinkel was like, but yeah, it was, there were problems with the cooling system of the aircraft. There were problems with the layout of the engine nacelle, especially with the way that the oil was placed there. There were problems with construction. And the big problem for the Heinkel as well, and why it had so many failures in the field, was actually maintenance. It was incredibly high maintenance aircraft, and the German ground staff did not have the technical requirements and the technical know-how and experience in order to fulfill that. They simply did not have it. And that caused a lot of problems. Yeah, there was an issue with the Heinkel that it set itself on fire. That was what I was referring to with the problems with the engine nacelle. But that was not a problem for that long. I think they fixed it relatively quickly. I would have to check my sources again, but it was fixed in a relatively short frame of time. But I think they ran it consistently at 1.3 ATA, 2600 RPM, so which is essentially combat power, or what the Germans called climb and combat power, Steig- und Kampfleistung. And the Heinkel had absolutely no problems with that. The ones they tested, the ones in the field, and I think this is where we are going to get into this question once again of maintenance and technical expertise and know-how, as well as of build quality, mind you, as well as and the layout. At that point, there are problems. Oh, I think they would also be saying the same thing about the Heinkel 162. I mean, the Heinkel 162 was received quite a infernal verdict by Allied test pilots after the war. I mean, of course, Eric Winkle-Brown said it was a pleasure to fly, but the one thing that is always forgotten in that quote is what he says afterwards. It's like, essentially, it is not something that is good for a new pilot, and that was the purpose of the Heinkel 162. So it's a dreadful aircraft, absolutely dreadful. Deep dive video on the P4. Oh, Mark Steenbergen, thank you very much for that donation. Thank you very much indeed. Happy New Year, sir. Happy New Year indeed. Deep dive video on the P-38. Yeah, eventually. For now, actually, I refer you to Greg's Airplanes. He has a video on the P-38, if I remember correctly. That's very good. I don't do the same stuff that Greg does. I do other stuff. So that would be something that I think some of you might appreciate a lot. Should we make a video, Avro Arrow? Oh, you know how to choose your topics, don't you, Millennium? You know how to choose your topics. Avro Arrow. Oh, that piece of absolute piece of. And battle process of to replace the SCF-18. I can tell you what they're replacing it with. I can tell you right now. I mean, the only thing I could say about the Canadian process of procurement is that the decision is there. It's just a political theater. And I can say that, I think, without offending anybody in Canada, because I'm sitting in Germany where we have the same thing with the tornado, right? Dornier 335, that's possible, actually, because there's one in a sort of replica in Germany that I potentially have access to. Oh, talking about the Canadians, Eddie, how do you do? How do you do? Outsourcing of air power to other nations or to private companies, a very bad idea. A very bad idea. Bastonia, I fly buses. My bus carries 60 Fallschirmjägers. Okay, then. Thank you very much for that donation. Thank you very much indeed. Actually, talking about Fallschirmjägers, I have some really cool files on paratroopers and C-47 loading trials for Normandy. That could also make a cool video. That's already on the list now. Canadian talk about Gripen is just hot air. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. Paul, there's already a video on the Bolton Pole Defiant. Just search YouTube in defense of the Bolton Pole Defiant, and you'll find it. Is there any written evidence that Focke-Wulf 190 pilots use takeoff flaps to combat to tighten their turns? Wouldn't surprise me if they did that at low speeds, but I haven't seen it in any sort of primary documents, I have to say. It would be very surprising if they didn't, or at least some of them did not do that at some point. Then again, no, it's definitely, at some point they definitely did that. Oh yeah, in the Hawks game, outsourcing. Well, we shouldn't take video games as sources, but you see a problem there. Actually, the Hawk scenario is a perfect example of, if you play that game, what happens when you outsource your air power. Favorite plane from World War One? Newport 11, Newport 17, or the Spats. Anything French in World War One is where I go to. Anything French. Right, let me check the time here. Actually, it's down here. Oh yeah, so we're gonna have to actually wrap this up now, everyone, just so I can also get some sleep, because it's been a fantastically busy day, very productive, but at the same time, very, very tiring as well. I'll leave you with the 2 book recommendations that I actually wanted to do the whole time. Flying Camelot, Michael Hankins, as well as, if you are speaking the crowd, check out Moderne Krieger. Die Technikerfahrungen deutscher Militärpiloten 1910, 1945. Very good book. Very good book indeed. So first of all, once again, big thank you for all of you for being here. Big thank you for the donations. Big thank you to all the Patreon supporters and channel members. And yeah, Happy New Year once again to all of you. I hope you are going to have a fantastic 2022. Next stream is going to be from my usual base without, this beautiful 1970 Art Deco style. And the new video is coming out next Thursday. Put that into your agendas. If you enjoy the channel, if you enjoy what I'm doing, consider supporting via Patreon channel membership. You know how it works. If you like the content that the content producer does, you can always have the option to support them if that's something you want to do. And yeah, as always, remember a book is also still available for a couple of weeks. That's stukabook.com if you want to get it. And yeah, all of you have a fantastic evening. Smash that like button, as all the other influencers say. Let's get that number rising up again. That's what they do, right? They always ask people to hit that like button for some reason. But yeah, hope all of you are having a fantastic evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time it is where you are. And I wish all of you a very happy day. Goodbye.